All right. How are we doing today, everybody? My name is Max. I'll be teaching you guys about identifying different coffee flavor profiles. So let's just introduce everybody here. So we have Elena, Isaac, Thomas, and Cameron. How are we doing, everybody? Good. Perfect. Okay. So our objectives today are we're first going to discuss what coffee means to us, how we use it, why we drink it, kind of those things. And then we'll go into kind of identifying where coffee truly comes from, what its original form is, and then we're just going to analyze region-specific flavor profiles. It's kind of like a super basic introductory kind of thing, something like a beginner would kind of look for. So coffee, what do we think? What do you guys think when you hear the word coffee? And you can spit out something or not say anything at all.
Caffeine.
Caffeine. Elena, what'd you say?
Beans,
Beans. Anybody else?
flavors.
Okay.
I would have to say with coffee, I think of rejuvenation.
Rejuvenation. Okay. Those are really good answers. When I think of coffee, I don't know. I kind of go to this negative mindset of just like corporate, coffee, kind of like an underappreciation of what it is. So when I think of it, I think of Starbucks, Scooters, Dunkin' Donuts, getting a coffee at the 7-Eleven, Caribou Coffee, Maxwell House, that's all of them. Just those kind of like, I don't know, just mass-produced coffee. I get it, in college, we kind of, drink it, a few times every day just to get that edge. But I feel like as a society, we're starting to lose, the kind of like aesthetic of it and actually enjoying it. So I don't know if you guys agree or not, or if you beg to differ. You can speak now or forever, No? Okay. So where does coffee come from? So this I actually learned something here. So it comes from a cherry-like fruit. So as you see in the picture there, they look kind of like cherries, but in the middle is the actual coffee bean. So early on, it was mixed with fat to kind of make an energy bar. People didn't really start roasting coffee beans until the 13th century, and modern coffee didn't originated in Arabia around the 13th century. And kind of like looking through the information, the Muslim community used it to use its stimulant powers just because of their very long prayer sessions. There's also been, a lot of like folklore and tales about this. One was there was a shepherd and all of his sheep were acting really crazy and he didn't know what was going on. So a monk came by and found these cherry-like pieces of fruit, and he ate some and his other fellow monks ate some, and they noticed they had a lot more energy and they're more aware. So that's one way people started discovering it. You can go online, you can find all sorts of different tales about this, but this is what I could actually find about for a timeline. So, okay. So then moving forward, the coffee bean didn't, I spelled that wrong, exist outside of Arabia or Africa until the 1600s, where I believe an Indian immigrant just took a bunch of beans with him, and he left. And then the Dutch founded coffee estates in Sri Lanka, Ceylon, and Java. The French founded coffee estates in the Caribbean. Spanish owned, or they basically started planting in Central America. And coffee didn't really become popular in the United States until the Boston Tea Party, because they couldn't drink tea because they were throwing it over into the harbor. So they were switching to coffee, kind of more as a kind of patriotic, kind of protest kind of thing. So we're going to start moving on to our kind of coffee profile. So we're going to go region specific here. And as we go through this, I don't know, I mean, which one of you guys like to enjoy coffee just straight up black? Isaac does.
Only with dessert.
Only does during dessert. Tom is not about it. I like drinking it just straight up as well. And I really didn't really get into this until going to like local coffee shops that actually roast their beans and kind of educate their customers about this kind of stuff. So I think it's really neat. But Central America, we'll commonly see beans from Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, Nicaragua. I can never say this country's name. And it has a strong influence on the North American coffee industry just because it's so close. And what we'll see with this coffee is that the flavor is usually balanced. It's going to be sweeter, and it's going to have a tart, fruity acidity. And you can often say like, oh, like this tastes bright. It's going to have a really nice, like kind of popping flavor. I tend to like these a little bit more, but that's just me. Then going over to South America, you'll see beans commonly from Colombia, Brazil, Ecuador, and Bolivia. Brazil is the world's largest coffee provider, as 25% of the beans produced from there go straight to the United States. The flavor is similar to Central America. It'll be more mild, light. With Colombian beans, they'll be more nutty. They'll be sweet, less acidic. And then in Brazil, they'll be more creamier and kind of like a chocolatey kind of tone to it. Going over to Africa, we'll see beans commonly from Ethiopia, Kenya, Uganda. I actually like these a lot, just because I've seen in my own experience, they do have a really kind of fruity taste, but then the aroma is very floral. And so again, out of all the flavor profiles, these are going to be very fragrant and very strong in flavor. So again, I really enjoy Ethiopian beans myself. And then in Asia, we'll see beans from Indonesia, India, and the Philippines. They're going to be more earthy. And by earthy, I mean that could be literally anything. They could be more herbal. They may taste like dirt. It kind of depends on what your taste buds tell you. It'll be more dark. People will either love it or hate it. And then depending on the region, it would be either savory, smoky, and less acidic. So double picture there. What would you guys choose out of the flavor profiles we've seen so far?
I very much like. I'm much more of a dark person. I like the more bitter, the better for me. So I would definitely have to go with that kind of a flavor profile. Would definitely be darker, bitter. Put a little bit of a scar on my soul, I guess.
That's what I used to say. All right, that's a good answer. Elena, what about you?
I like the darker, bitter coffee as well, but it has to actually be like high quality if it's going to be darker for me.
Okay. So
Yeah.
like more.
But usually I prefer like lighter coffees if it's not.
Okay. So
More
you're
fruity,
looking
I
for
guess.
like more kind of flavor, I guess.
Yeah, more flavor if it's going to be lighter.
Okay. Tom, what about you? If you drank coffee, what do you think you'd kind of gravitate towards?
If I went straight black, I would need like a solid like flavor about it. Like I couldn't do. I'm not like Cam. I'm not dark in my soul. I need a flavor in my life.
Okay, so you're probably more of like
Thomas likes the mocha frappes from Starbucks.
Okay. I'm an iced coffee person.
iced coffee. There you go.
Nothing wrong with that.
No.
Wrong.
Isaac, what about you? What would you gravitate towards? I can't
Good
hear you.
answer.
Apparently, Isaac doesn't want to answer.
Yeah, Isaac,
No, he's talking.
Isaac, we can't hear you.
He did say his internet was really bad, and so he's gonna come over here,
Okay.
my place. That's maybe something.
All right.
He seems like a dark roast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably.
Don't hear me now.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. I didn't catch any of that.
Of my soul, but yes, I would definitely.
okay.
Okay.
He said pretty much dark like his soul.
Okay. So he's more of a dark
I think.
roast, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I can't hear him. All right. So just moving on here. Does anybody have any questions like about this or kind of about what we went over? No.
Nope.
Yeah, I do.
Oh, Alina does.
If you were going to go buy a cup of coffee, like how would you be able to find out what kind of coffee it is,
Oh, okay.
where it came from and everything?
So I found that it depends on the place you go to, because some coffee shops that maybe roast their own beans or may get a certain brand or something, they may be like like they may not know. So I usually go up to them and ask like, oh, like what are you guys brewing today? And they'll either say like, oh, like a light, medium, or dark. And then from there you can say, oh, well, like what region is that from? Is the medium from? Or they'll say, oh, today we have an Ethiopia, a Guatemala, and some other variant. And you can be like, oh, okay. And then if you don't know like kind of like the basics about that region, you'd be like, okay, well, what does the Ethiopia kind of taste like? And then they can kind of give you a gist, kind of like what I did here. So.
Gotcha. Cool.
What is the most rare type of coffee in the world?
Ooh. That is a good question. I do not know. I did not find anything about that.
I don't either. I was just curious. What's the most expensive? Do we know? Anybody?
Did not find that either.
No. Interesting.
Hmm.
Do you know if there's like a difference in like what people consider quality if it's from Ethiopia versus the Philippines versus other places? Is there like a difference in quality?
I believe there is. Can I go back here? I believe the beans from Africa are actually the purest beans, like the best quality, just because they grow in the wild rather than
Gotcha.
being farmed and everything. And you have all the chemicals and everything like that. So
Right. Gotcha.
Doesn't the altitude that it's like farmed at too play a role?
oh yeah, altitude, humidity, the humidity, and then the weather plays a major role in the development of the flavor of the bean. Yep. And then the time of year too. Some beans are harvested in, the summer, early fall, while, others are kind of in the winter months. So that's why if you go to like a local coffee shop, you'll see, Ethiopian and Kenyan blends during, these 4 months, and then they're gone. And then you'll see kind of like beans from Mexico or Chile or anything, kind of in different months there too. So definitely depends on the time of year. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to conclude this here. Thank you guys for tagging along and going through this culinary journey.
You're welcome.
Thanks for the lesson, Max.